Thank you for joining us today. On the program, we were lucky enough to have a very interesting guest and one who has been a leader in the hemp movement for a very long time. He's the news editor of High Times magazine, Steve Bloom. Steve, thank you for coming onto the show today.
How you doing, Casper?
Your voice in the movement has been heard for a long time, and High Times magazine has had a direction on bringing information about the hemp plant and the hemp movement to the public in any aspect that they can. At the same time, you've also had to deal with some problems over the past few years. We want to talk about all of that. First of all, the voice that you've put together, High Times magazine, how did that all come about?
We're based in New York City, and we're a fairly small operation magazine publishing company that publishes High Times as well as a couple of other magazines. And we churn out a magazine every month like everybody else does, in our business. We're no different than most people when it comes to that. It's our job to write headlines, to assign, to bring in photos, to do all the legwork that it takes to get the whole magazine produced from beginning to end. That's what we do. We're all professionals at that. And then, by the way, we're also advocates, so that's what makes it unusual.
Okay, now the fact that you are advocates and you're out there with your neck on the line, being willing to put your face and your time and talent out there for people to see and to enjoy and learn from, has also caused you some problems. In New Orleans, you were subpoenaed into court, and a problem came up that many people know about, but not in full detail.
Well, we've documented it, in High Times, and it's been documented by the mainstream press, as we like to sort of call it, Washington Post, Wall Street Journal, USA Today. They've looked into our situation, what was going on there. And the situation pretty much was through a campaign to gut the indoor growing industry. They targeted High Times as well as the main information vehicle that has been spreading this news about growing indoors, and they wanted to snuff out the industry and get rid of High Times at the same time if they could. And they also targeted a magazine called Cincinnati Tips, and targeting meant that they started a grand jury. They indicted the president of a company called the Seed Bank out of that grand jury. They wanted information from High Times regarding a possible criminal conspiracy, connecting us with him. And we, of course, are connected in a business relationship. He advertises through High Times, but they seem to think it's something bigger and vaster than that. That we're, in the midst of, some sort of, major clandestine activities to distribute marijuana all over the world or something. It's just absurd. We're a magazine that talks about it.
Well, now with High Times being established as what many people say the Bible of the movement, I mean, you were there before anybody else was, it seems like. I mean, you were reporting and covering stories that people wouldn't pick up and cover. All right. So with you being out there and bringing that information home, that makes you an easy target. How do you protect yourself now? How do you go about getting advertisers? How do you go about raising funds to keep the magazine going?
Well, it's not fundraising. We're a magazine. We put a magazine, people buy it. That's one major source of revenue. High Times has good sales, and we thank all our dedicated, loyal readers. High Times is hard to get sometimes. People always tell us that. All over the country, we get questions. Where can I get it? Where do I get it? People drive miles out of their way to get it. It's amazing. We're spirited by those stories, but it's just.
Yeah, I'm told that in some parts of America it's illegal for them to have the magazine
People
in their
think
store.
it is. That's the absurdity of it. They can be told that by somebody in some locality, and they'll believe it, and then we'll get these calls. Oh, is High Times out of business? Or High Times this? And we're constantly getting, not lately, but we have in the past. I mean, I can't remember one real recently, but we just generally get that kind of thing, and there's just all this disinformation that gets spread around about High Times that the DA, our arch enemy, likes to constantly spread. They can just send it out into the media, it gets picked up, it gets spread around, in stories and wire service stories, and before you know it, it's just sprinkled into the consciousness of people, that so-and-so, has occurred, and it's not true.
Okay, now, when I've traveled across seas, I've been to Amsterdam and Germany, and I've been to, lucky enough to be a few places, courtesy of the United States Army, but I've had the chance to do that. And when I was cross seas, I noticed that your magazine is there. Your magazine's in Amsterdam, your magazine's in England, your magazine's in Canada, your magazine's all across the coast.
False. Not in Canada.
Oh,
Illegal
so-
in Canada.
Oh, it's illegal in Canada, but it can, maybe through mail order, people are getting
Right,
it.
right. But
So you are reaching an international audience. So therefore, you focus on the world scene. Now, there's been some changes in the laws regarding hemp, and there's been some people in, I think, Australia who are trying to bring hemp into a cash crop situation and to help feed the people down there. When you focus on the world scene, what directions do you go?
Australia, I don't know very much about other than a proposal to the government there for a hemp project. We focus on a lot of the aspects of where hemp comes from around the world at this point. We're unearthing it at the same time all the activists are. You know, we're all working at a feverish pace. You know, the activists and the entrepreneurs, I must add, you know, there's money out there and people are trying to make it as well as spread the gospel about, you know, hemp. You know, so you know, we're doing that, you know, as well.
Yeah, and you're doing an excellent job. We'll be talking more with Steve Bloom right after this. You're actively seeking new advertisers, and you're also repositioning the magazine and putting it into a different direction. Isn't that right?
Well, the base of advertisers that the government scared off through the harassment of Operation Green Merchant, we've had to look elsewhere. And fortunately, as I said before, the readers have been able to sort of carry the load and very devoted and keep us afloat. But we need more advertising to really, you know, run a better operation, you know, overall. And we've been just looking out to, you know, more obvious markets, the entertainment world, record companies, film companies, book companies. They are very reticent, but you know, that's our little test. Each time we make a breakthrough. I don't know if I should show advertising, but this is an advertisement from Columbia Records, who said that they would not advertise in High Times at one point, we were told, because of our support of Normal.
Okay.
Yet somehow or other, this group persuaded them to have the advertisement because they wanted it. Some wall broke down very quickly for some strange reason, and it's a good wall for us.
Okay.
And we're hoping there'll be more of that. Just, you know, getting out in the community, people have been afraid to touch us.
Now, over the years, your content of your magazine has gotten stronger and has become more focused. And I believe you've even been responsible for breaking news, bringing new information to light that kind of rattled some trees.
Well, our main claim to fame in recent history is the whole hemp information that we've uncovered. You know, we did a big story on JFK recently that is sort of will become a major motion picture. No, it's coming. The movie's coming out about JFK. I mean, that kind of information. You know, we jump on the stuff that's not told. You know, and that's where we see ourselves as the alternative press at this point, because there's so many angles. Sometimes maybe a little too heavy on the conspiracy side. We have to sort of rule a few out, you know, in editorial meetings. But you know, the hemp information is a grand conspiracy theory. You know, when you really dig into it all, and that's what's, I think, ultimately really fascinated us, that it's so deep.
Now, you've also been attributed, or your magazine has been attributed to helping to bring the focus to the hemp movement, like an umbrella where people can all get to know each other and interact. As you continue to grow, how do you plan to incorporate that particular
Well, we want them to
attitude?
start advertising. That's the other side, I guess. But they know that. I don't have to tell them through this medium. But we were hoping to create a hemp industry, in a sense, you know, that will benefit us as well. I don't think that's mercenary. You know, we have to survive, and just like the previous companies who are no longer advertising, although there are a few, you know, the lighting systems and stuff like that, the grow companies, so to speak, garden, you know, stores and so on. They, you know, they have come back in drips and drabs, but we need to look elsewhere, and there's a whole hemp industry that's waiting to sort of really blossom. You see it here in this building downstairs, you know, the whole row of people with hemp, the hemp merchants, and it's pretty amazing to watch, you know, how it is expanding. And there really is money in it, I think, and people are going to make money from it too, and that'll be good. It'll help fund the movement and get, you know, we need more money here in this whole movement, and hopefully it'll get spread around the right ways, you know, so it's just not a few entrepreneurs, you know.
And when people think of High Times magazine, they think of it sometimes as strictly a marijuana magazine. And there's a lot more to it than that now, isn't there?
Well, you know, we really are the only marijuana magazine, so we'll still, you know, I don't mind that banner. Kind of changing the terminology somewhat to hemp or whatever, but Within that, I mean, voice of the counterculture, we have a little slogan. I mean, and then people ask, well, what's the counterculture, or is there a counterculture? And we think there is. We've uncovered that as well. People don't want to know about Hemp tour. They don't want to know there are people all over the country. That's a countercultural movement of people doing that, and it gets local coverage, but it doesn't get any national.
Okay.
It's not reported like they'd rather report in the New York Times a few weeks ago that there's a whole decline in marijuana use and so on and so forth, and they don't want to acknowledge that there's a whole rise in a movement of people who think that it should be legalized, and that doesn't indicate decline. They don't want to recognize that there is a counterculture of people out there. It's just not as huge as it was in the '60s. It doesn't make as good pictures.
Okay.
The crowds aren't big enough for them or something.
Okay. But you're still making a change in people's lives. You've occasionally picked up the banner in somebody's world who's been arrested or been treated unjustly, and with the power of the press, shall we say, you've corrected an injustice. We'd like to discuss a couple of those stories when we come back after this. We're here today with High Times editor Steve Bloom. Steve, as we said earlier, the power of the press can make a difference in personal lives. Now, you, on a personal example, have shown by personal example how that can be achieved and some of the things that you've done, and then you've written about it.
Yeah, there was one situation where I was arrested last year in New Jersey, and it really put the drug war right in my face. We get so much information to High Times from people who are arrested all the time, but it's detached, from the reality of it happening. Well, what happened to me, And what happened, kind of in brief, is I was driving at night in New Jersey, speeding. And I was pulled over for a speeding violation, and that just wasn't enough. I was driving a car that they presumed guilty, an old Firebird, 70s kind of car, fit some sort of profile, I'm told. And I was just coming back from a Dead show, so I kind of looked the part. But so once he sized me up, it was like, we're getting this guy out of the car. And to be honest, I had been stopped one other time in New Jersey within that year, and so it's like, oh no, here we go again, same damn car. Whatever. And I hadn't had the car very long either. Just somebody, just the way that happened. It's a great car, but for some reason they hate it in New Jersey. And so they brought me out of the car and proceeded to search. And since it happened the previous time as well, I knew they were going to the pat search. And they pat you down, which really is a major violation right there, But they're allowed to do this for some reason, And first of all, why are they taking me out of the car? That's the whole point. I mean, in my mind, it's like, why did that even start? As a necessity. That's the change in life from my time when I was younger, first learning how to drive and maybe having a speeding violation, and you get your ticket and that's it, and you go to now this whole hysterical response to a simple traffic violation.
And even if you get out of the car without being told to, they'll put a gun to you.
Well, then of course it gets worse. My story is not as bad as a lot of others. I'm sure you can hear, but they did take me out of the car. They found a pipe in my pouch. And I was arrested for the pipe, simply for the pipe. Okay. No quantity of anything other than what was called less than 50 grams, which they tested the pipe to find little flakes of trace. But in the meanwhile, I'm arrested, handcuffed, fingerprinted, the whole fucking thing. Uh-oh.
The whole thing.
The whole thing. I'm sorry. I'll do that again. I'm cuffed. Fingerprinted, arrested, taken to the station house, the whole thing, and this is all for a pipe. So I was let out in about an hour. It wasn't the worst experience of my life, I suppose. They didn't hit me, they didn't do anything, they didn't beat me, nothing happened terrible like that. It was sort of a state of unreality when I went back to my car and I just drove home.
Okay.
I just got arrested. Oh, okay. And I'm out of my own recognizance, and now I have to do the whole court thing. Okay. So I went to a lawyer, and a friend of mine who's a New Jersey lawyer, and she decided to take the case. She's a corporate lawyer who really didn't have the time to do it, and so she's a real great hero to me, having taken this case pro bono. And did some research. We found some interesting precedents and used it to overturn the search. Okay. And we lost in the first round, and we won in the second round on the state level, going to Trenton. Had to get through one round because it was a small town that just no way they were going to slap the cops' wrists. And then we had to get out of that town and go to the state house where they didn't care about that little town's concerns. Apparently, we got a cool judge. They got the judge suite of Trenton or something. Who really heard our story and was actually disappointed the state didn't really try and defend themselves very well. They thought, oh, they'll just and they came with a real lame approach to, you know, not even trying to like sell the, you know, that I was really guilty of anything. Just, you know, he did this. I didn't do anything. I moved my hand like this to get my wallet to my pouch, and he thought I was going for a gun. You know, it's just all this.
So you know from firsthand
Yeah,
experience.
they'll make up anything. You know, and the hemp tour people have told me, you know, well, and I've learned, you know, you can't drive around anymore with, you know, anything wrong with your car. That anything they'll pick you off. You know, that's the police state stuff that we're dealing with. That's scary, and I think people realize that on a day-to-day level. An average citizen now, I think it's really seeping in. They realize. I mean, except for the, you know, the hysterical people who are in favor of the drug war, who are of the few, but they bark loudest. You know, most people still, I think, are opposed to that kind of encroachment on their freedoms. I mean, the average American citizen, you know. So when it comes out of drug-related behavior, which people think is no big deal in the first place, you know, I have a lot of average Americans, and then they're getting stopped on top of it. They're getting really incensed. Okay. You know, it's costing them money, obviously, as well. You know, it's crimping their whole, you know, financial, you know, life. It could be any number of things. My case is such a small little situation, but it did teach me how you have to fight back and what it costs to fight back. My lawyer said, oh, it would cost so much money, and I realized I probably wouldn't be able to afford it.
Right.
You know, so the whole system is not set up very well to fight back.
We've only got about a minute or two left, and there's a great number of journalists in America who like to be able to have a forum, I'm sure, as yours, and be able to voice their opinion as you do, but the way the laws are written and the way the harassment in various communities are presented to people, they have a tendency to withdraw from having the courage to do that. What would you say to these journalists now dealing with the rights that we have in America? How would you
individually? I mean, in their local.
Because we need journalists to stand up and speak out.
Well, I guess they must have problems from publication to publication, depending on the editorial slant. You know, where do they want to go? You know, with their editorial focus. I'm amazed, you know, the amount of, say, hemp editorials you see all over the country, drug legalization editorials. Again, you see from, you know, real average, you know, the daily papers all across America. It's not a word that seems to be having a hard time getting spread. You know, it is fanning out all over the place. But I'm sure it's a tough sell. Some places you probably have to just, you know, pitch it real hard. You know, like anybody else would. You know, come at it in almost sort of a business-like approach. You know, quality manuscript on something that says your point of view. You know, you can probably get it in as guest editorials. I don't know. I don't think it's that hard. I mean, we are somewhat of an island right now in the world of publishing. You know, we're doing something that nobody quite is doing, and you know, sometimes that excites us, and other times we'd rather have a few more friends. You know, like you understand what we're doing. You know, we're really not bad guys. I don't know why the publishing industry a lot of times doesn't lend more support towards what we do. You know, we're like the stepchild or something, and they want to just like they want to watch from afar, you know, to see how we are. We're like the guinea pigs, you know, in this First Amendment experiment or something. And it's like, let them deal with it. Well, we are dealing with it. We have a good lawyer, and we have the resources apparently to get as far as we've gone. They haven't sunk us. You know, they would like to have, and they haven't. And everybody thinks, oh, why don't they just come up and bust us all or something? You know,
it's not that easy.
They got nothing on us.
It's not that easy. All you're doing is speaking the truth.
You know, they were taking pictures of us the other day at the Washington.
I'd like to say on behalf of the members of the hemp movement, and I have spoken to many of them, they're very appreciated for what you are doing and the fight that you're making possible and the way you're raising their voices. It's been an honor to have you on our program. I'd like to have you back again sometime.
Okay, that sounds great. I want to thank everybody who is those devoted followers of High Times. I mean, they're amazing.
More after this.